What's up guys, SnowShovel here, and I'm going to do a tutorial on video editing. Sort of. I'm just going to go over basically what I do to make my videos look good, and hopefully it will shed some light upon you on your video editing. So, this is assuming that you guys are familiar with Sony Vegas. That is the video editing tool I use 99% of the time in my videos. And that's what I've been using this entire time, and it's really easy to use. So if you don't know how to use it, I recommend you look at some tutorials. It's very easy to use. So anyway, with that said, I will just get started. First of all, the first thing I do when I start Sony Vegas is I go to properties and I set it to 720p 30p, and that basically just sets it to HD quality. Not too high, but not too low. Just enough so that I can get some clarity, but I won't lag while I'm editing. Pixel format you want to leave as 8-bit, and your resolution quality you can set as best or whatever you think is good enough. I just set it to best because it looks the best. Your audio, this should be perfectly fine. You don't need to mess with this. You can set it to best if you'd like. Doesn't really matter. And that's pretty much it. So that's your project properties, and these are the settings you want to use while you're editing. So now that we got that done, I'm going to import a clip, and I'll just use this one, biggest BS shot of my life.avi, and this is a Fraps recording I took a while ago. Basically it's just like a wall bang headshot through this wall. I thought it was really funny, so I recorded it, and I've never really gotten around to using it. So I'll just use it as an example in this clip. So I have my clip here, and I'll just go over what I will do. First thing that you want to do is you want to set up this clip for editing. So you go to the properties on the clip, and you start out by disabling the resample. Basically what resampling is it adds frames in between the frames, so it provides like an illusion of smoothness, but it's at the cost of clarity, and that's something you don't want in fast-paced videos like AVA or anything, because you want to be able to see what's going on. And if you have smart resample on the entire time, then your video is going to look very blurry, and you don't want that. That is one of the biggest things that people seem to forget when it comes to video editing, is by turning this off. So I'll just show you what it looks like with it on and off. So in order to do that, I'll leave it on. I'll set this to best because that will show the resampling. And you can see I'll just try and make this a little bigger. You can see that there are like 2 or 3 frames in between each other in this exact moment. And the reason why it's doing that is because I have resampling on. And that just, it looks like crap when you have that on. So you don't want to have that on, you want to have that off. So when you turn it off, look at that. It goes to normal. Like there's no in-between frames, so it looks much better, and it's much more clear. So you want to turn that off unless you're doing, there are specific times when resampling will be useful, and that's when you're speeding up a clip. It'll look much better if a fast-forwarded clip is resampled, because it blends the animations better together. But when you're doing normal real-time speed or slow-mo, you want to have that off. So we have that off. Another thing you'll notice is the letterbox, the black bars on the side, and that's because I'm playing 8:6, which is a 4:3 aspect ratio, and this is 720p, which is a 16:9 ratio. And I have it letterboxed because I don't want distortion on my screen. If you want to have a full 16:9, like what's shown in my montages, you just go to the cropping tool, which is right here on the clip. It's the middle one, and then you go to 16:9, and that will set your clip to 16:9. But in doing so, you're cropping the top and the bottom of the clip, so you lose the HUD, and you're basically just chopping the HUD. There's nothing you can really do about this. You can stretch your 4:3, or you can just use a 16:9 ratio in the game to prevent this. But if you're doing 800:600 like I do, then I usually just leave it like this, or I do 16:9 cropped like this. You never want to do this, where you turn aspect ratio or maintain aspect ratio off, because that just stretches it and it kind of looks like crap, and everything starts looking really fat and it just doesn't look right. So I have that usually off. So yeah, 16:9, leave it like that. I guess that'll look okay for now. Another thing, if you do 16:9, you'll notice the video. Well, you can't really notice in the video, but you'll notice the pixelation will be higher, and that's because you are producing less pixels on the screen, and that just causes pixelation. So if you're going to do 16:9 with 8:6, I recommend you have anti-aliasing on during your recording. Speaking of which, recording-wise, if you can't do fraps, DxTory or Bandicam are perfectly acceptable options. Just make sure you have it set to the highest possible quality you can while doing compression. This way your videos will still look decent and you can still video edit them with almost the same clarity as fraps. Fraps is uncompressed, so obviously you would need a very powerful computer to record using fraps. This specific recording is 120 frames per second, and the reason why I record at 120 frames per second is because Sony Vegas allows you to slow-mo up to 4 times, and if you do that, that means 30 frames per second instead of 120 frames per second, which means I get consistent slow-mos. You'll notice in almost all my videos I use 120 because my slow-mos are very smooth, so I'll just show you what that looks like right now. And you can tell that it's slow-mode because the sound quality is terrible, so I will go into how to fix that right now. In order to fix the slow-mo sound where it's not like a really high-pitched whine, you want to turn on pitch change, and you set it to lock to stretch, and when you do that, basically it lowers the pitch with the slow-mo so that it sounds much cleaner. So I'll just show you what that sounds like. It sounds much cleaner. It's much better than that high-pitched noise that you just heard. So if you are doing slow-mo, you want to make sure you have pitch change turned on, because otherwise your slow-mos are going to sound terrible, and you don't want that. So we have that done now. So that's just basic stuff. Let me put this clip back to normal speed. Let me do that real quick. One, and then crop. Okay, so I have my normal clip, and this is a very basic clip, I would say. And if I were to put this into a montage, like as one of the frag kills, there are certain things I would do to this clip before putting it in. Or I would do certain things to this clip while I'm putting it into my montage, and one of them is reducing the amount of recording at the beginning and in the end. You only want to have like maybe 6 or 7 seconds for a frag, a single frag especially. You don't want much more than that because it bores the viewer, and you don't want to have too much pointless animation going on during. Whoops. You don't want to have too much like boring stuff happening. You basically just want to get the frag kill, show them that you got the frag kill, and then be done with it. You don't want to have like this pointless extra stuff. So you want to keep it short and concise, and especially during the intro as well. You want to just get into the clip, end the clip, and then move on to your next clip. It's very important. So remember that. You don't want to bore your audience by having all this pointless running around and reloading and stuff. You want to make it as short as possible while still maintaining the dramatic effect of whatever you're doing. So I've cropped this clip so that I've left most of the interesting stuff in it, and now that I've done that, hang on, I gotta do this. There we go. Okay, because I don't want to show them the part where I'm typing, so I'll just end it right here, right after the frag clip. So I have this clip. It's about 3-4 seconds long. I'll make this intro a little bit longer so I can show you what I'm doing. So I take this clip and I want to emphasize this frag kill right here, and I want to transition in and out of this, but I want to do it so that it's dramatic. So let me add some music to this so I can show you the syncing process of this, because syncing is what makes frag movies very dramatic, because if you sync it correctly, it's very effective. So I'll just use, I don't know, I'll just use something random here, I don't know, Strobot by Netsky. So I have this song, I don't think I've heard this song yet. Okay, and I want to find a part where it syncs well. This is just an example. So I'm just going to sync this up with this drop right here. So I synced it up with the drop in the song with the kill in the frag, or in the frag clip right here. So this looks good. And so now that I've got that synced, I'm ready to start splicing and transitioning and doing video effects. It's very important though that when you're making your montage that you don't do video effects or transitions until after you've synced the entire video. And the reason why I say that is because the second you start adding transitions and color correction, your video is going to start lagging because it has to render all the post-production stuff that you've added while you're editing. So you want to do that stuff last. There's a step-by-step thing to do this, and you just want to do that stuff last because otherwise you're going to lag. So you sync your clip, and I've got it synced up with the drop, and now I want to splice it so that this is slow mode and that it comes back in. So I have this slow mode 4 times. I have it locked to stretch, and now I'm ready to start doing transitions. So before I do that, however, I gotta make sure that this looks good. So let's watch this. So that looks good. I mean, I could probably spend maybe a couple more minutes like tweaking this so that it's perfect, but I'm just gonna get through this as fast as I can, and I'll just show you guys what happens after I render this. So I have this slow-mo, I have this intro part and this outro part, and the frag in the middle. This is just a single frag, so this is very basic, but in normal videos I would probably have multiple kills. So you would do this, you would do this specific sequence of events per kill. So if you got a kill here, you would have a slow-mo here, or maybe not, depending on which part you want to make. You want to emphasize a certain part. You don't want to slow-mo everything, but you want to make it so that the frags flow together with the song. So when you get the frags, you want it to sync with the music. But single frag, so I have a slow-mo here, an intro and an outro, and the frag in the middle. And so what I want to do now is, because I've got this already set up, I've got this synced perfectly, well, not perfectly, but good enough to my standards, I'm ready to start doing transitions. And transitions in Vegas are subjective. You can tweak a lot of transitions to your liking. You can use a lot of different effects to do transitions. And I'll just go over a few that I prefer. You'll notice vanilla Vegas has transitions to start out with. You usually want to avoid these because most of them are very amateur and most of them just look really cheesy. The only one I would use, honestly, is Flash. And even then I wouldn't really use it because when you use a transition in Vegas, you don't really have too much control over the animation as you would with a video effects. So I would stay away from transitions and I would use video effects if I were you. And there's a lot of vanilla video effects that you can use paired up with cropping, crop zooming, which I'll go over in a second. And you can make your intros and outros for each clip very nice looking. So I'll just start out with some basics. There's a basic one, and that's fade. And you basically just drag from the beginning of the clip, and you just drag it to where you want it to fade in. And you can even change the type of fade to linear or curved. So I just use this one. I mean, it doesn't really matter. They all look the same to me. So I'll use this one, and I'll have this one fade in as well, and I'll have it fade in with the music like this, so it looks nice. So I have this. This is a very basic fade effect, and this is probably the easiest one to use because you can just kind of drag it and pull it over, and you can also fade out. So I have my fade out and my fade in, but I also want to emphasize some more transitioning effects. And you can do video effects, or you can do a crop zoom effect, and I'll show you what a crop zoom effect is. Crop zoom is when you take the video that's displayed and you basically just zoom in on the video like this, and then you animate it so that it slowly comes outwards on the time scale here. And you can do that just by clicking on the time scale and then changing wherever you want it, and it will just animate it so that it progresses towards what you were basically just it'll just animate to where you want it to, based on that time scale right here. So if I wanted it to go back to normal 16:9, at this point I would move this point here and it will animate accordingly. So I have it doing that, and I think that looks good. It's important to note that fast animations will always look better than slow animations. So you want to make your animations quick, but not too quick. You want to make it quick enough so that it's viewable, but you don't want to make it too fast to where it's like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And you don't want it slow, because if you have a slow animation, they're like, what are you doing? And they're aware of the fact that you made that animation, and that's almost distracting. You want it to just be quick and effective. So I usually just set it to a couple frames like this. This is about 30 frames of animation, and that's about a second. So it goes from zoomed in and it zooms out like that. So I have that along with my fade. So I have that. I don't really like the way this fades, so I'm going to change this to a higher arc instead of a low arc, so that way I can see the zoom out a little better. So it's doing that. I want to make this a little longer because I want the animation to be a little more apparent. I'm going to make this zoom in even more so that the animation is a little quicker. So it's zoomed out. Also, another thing I've noticed is at the beginning of the clip you can see I have a crosshair, and I don't really like that. So I'm going to take the clip and I'm going to cut that out, that specific part out, because I don't like the crosshair. So I'm going to take that, and I guess I can just slow-mo this, or I can speed this up. Either way, it doesn't matter. In fact, I'll just crop it because I think that'll look better. So I've cropped to the video, the beginning part, and I need to move this video over. So in order to do that, I just select all my clips, which are just these three. And if you want to know how to do that, it's just you hold shift and click all of the clips that you want dragged. So I'm dragging those over, and I drag my music over. You'll notice it's lagging, and the reason why it's doing that is because I'm already starting the video effects processing, and that creates lag. So if you want to see what your video will look like animated, you can just change the preview to half. Half is pretty effective. You can still see most of it. And yeah, you can see the animation is having a toll on the my CPU, and I have a pretty decent computer, so you guys are probably going to be lagging as well while you're video editing. So like I said, it's very important to do the animation or the video effects after you're done syncing your clips. Anyway, a couple other transitioning effects you can use in Vegas that I use are defocus. Defocus is basically, it just blurs the image, and I don't know, I think it looks really cool. So I'm just going to use one of the defaults, circle, and you drag and drop it to the clip that you want it to be on, and you can animate it by clicking the animate button at the bottom where the plugin is, and then you can see a time scale of where it will animate the defocus. And at the beginning it will have these settings, which is what I want, and that looks pretty good. You can see the defocus basically just adds blur and like blurred out circles. It's a pretty cool effect, and I like using that in a lot of my montages, so I use that. But I want it to start focusing in before I get the frag kill. So I want to maybe change the defocus rate to 0 at this point, because I want to be able to see what's going on right before I get the kill. So I have it defocused, and it's lagging, so I can't really tell what's going on right here, so I'm going to change this to 1/4. So I can see what's going on, and basically it's just defocusing, and then it becomes focused in at this point, which I think looks pretty good. So I have this, and I have it defocused now. Another thing you can do that will help transitions is you can go from black and white, and you can just drag and drop a black and white effect, animate it, and do the exact same thing that I just did with defocus, and just put a timestamp here making it 0, and that will make it go from black and white to color along with the defocus effect, which will look pretty good. Another thing you can do, like the cool thing about this is that you can stack these on each other. You can add these transitioning effects with each other, and you can make them look even cooler, which is awesome. So you can add almost any type of video effects to transition, as long as you animate it back to the normal state before the clip ends. So for example, I can use, like, I don't know, I can use soft contrast, and I can just place a heavy contrast on here, animate it so that it goes back to normal, and voila. So now I have contrast, I have black and white effects, I have defocus, I have a fade in, and I have a cropped zoom out, all going on at the same time. And this looks really good when you're transitioning, because it's bringing you into the clip, and it's doing it in a way that you wouldn't expect, which is awesome. So you can see that the animation is looking good so far. So I have all this, and this is a transition that you can use at the beginning. And if you're doing a transition outwards, you basically just do the opposite. You want the clip to go from a normal state to the video effects stage that you're adding. So instead of doing it this way, where it's animated to go into the scene, it's animated to go out of the scene. So I'll just do that real quick. So I have a fade out here, and I want it to kind of like zoom in so that it progresses to the next clip kind of in a cool way. So I have it zooming in like this, which looks good. So I have that. You can also, because you're adding more you're reducing the amount of pixels on the screen, blur is a very effective tool to try and eliminate the pixelatedness of the clip. So you can add like a blur effect, and I'll just add that right now. I just drag and drop, and then I animate this so that I put the blur effect at the end, and I create a normal state before the end. So I'm doing that. And now that I've got it set up so that when it zooms in, it blurs. So now it looks pretty good. So that's fine. That'll work for an outro transition. And then I have my clip in the middle that I still need to emphasize. So you have your transitions, and then you have emphasis video effects that you can use for frag kills, like this one. If I want to make this into a dramatic animation where I basically just emphasize this kill, I can do that in several ways. You can do brightness and contrast effects that add brightness and contrast when you get the kill, and then it just goes back to the normal state at the end of the clip. You can do blur effects, you can do all sorts of things. So in this one I will just do a vanilla plugin called Unsharp Mask, and that's basically a contrasting mask that you add on, and You can change the way it affects the clip by adding sharpness or adding more contrast. So I'll just do that by adding a medium effect. And you can see, I'll make this full. You can see it makes the image a little bit sharper if I add more amount. And it adds almost like a bump map to the image, but this isn't what I want. What I want is a contrast. So I add this, and this is a full contrasted image now. You can see the blacks are much more black and the brights are much brighter. So I want to emphasize the kill by doing that. But I want it to fade out. Before I continue, the animation, if you change it before you add an animate button, it will automatically put whatever you animated or whatever settings you put at where you put the clip, basically. It's hard to explain, but if you don't animate the clip and then you animate it, it will automatically put two states of video effects into your timeline. So you want to get rid of the one that you're not using, which is this one, the one at the beginning. So I have this, and I have it set to maximum sharpness, and you can see the clip is very contrasted right now. So I want to bring it back to normal quickly. Not quickly enough so that it goes away before you understand what just happened. You want it to like kind of subtly go away. So I'm going to do this, and basically what I've just done is I've added the contrast, but then it fades as I'm getting the kill. And you can see that slowly animating to normal. It's a subtle but very effective way to try and emphasize a kill that you're getting, especially something that's crazy like this, where it's like a wall bang and you're like, whoa, what the hell? So it kind of like shocks your audience, sort of. So I've added this, and another way you can do it is by adding brightness along with that. So I'm going to emphasize this kill a little bit more by adding some brightness and contrast, and I'm going to animate this so that it's bright at the beginning of it, and then right here, or right where the unsharp mask goes back to normal, is where I want this to go back to normal so that it syncs up nicely. So I have this, and it goes back to normal mid-clip, so it looks pretty good, and then that's it. And then it defocuses out, or it blurs out and then fades out. So that looks good. Another couple things you could do, you can kind of splice in between an outro clip so that you can like animate certain portions of the clip to go faster and then slower. Like if I'm doing this kind of like bolt action movement right here, I can kind of speed this up right here and then slow this down. So this is a micro splice, so that you basically just do this, and you can like slow-mo this and then have this go a little bit faster so that it animates. That sounded weird, sounded like a video game, but yeah, basically you can kind of like mess around with the animations by speeding them up or slowing them down mid-clip. So I do that. Make sure that you have it locked to stretch on the slow-mo, and then that your fast one, it's not locked to stretch. Otherwise your character's sounds will be very chipmunkish. You don't want that. So I have that off. Okay, so I need to take that off because this is a speed up portion. So I have my clip. I have it animated with transitions and stuff, and I have this kind of emphasized right here, and then I have sort of like a kind of cool animation effect here on the reload to try and emphasize the reload after the frag. So let's watch this if we can. And so it kind of just animates outward. You can't really see what's going on because it's kind of lagging, but I'll show you the post-production video after this tutorial. So I have all of this happening, and then in fact, you know what, I'm gonna sync this up a little bit better, and I'm gonna try and sync it with the music right here. So I'm gonna speed this up, or I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna slow-mo this so that it's at full slow-mo, and then I'm gonna have it sync right here, and then just bring all these clips over. So I have it synced a little bit better now. So I have all that, and you can your transitions can be sped up, by the way, so that they're a little bit quicker, because they're not the part that really matters. So you can slow-mo them or speed them up. And speeding them up, like I said before, animations that are quicker look better. So speeding up the transitions here will look better. So I have this, and that zooms out very quickly and it's over with. So that's all done. I have my emphasis. This clip is basically synced up pretty well. So now I have to add color correction. And Vanilla Vegas has a couple tools where you can color correct. They're not really that effective, and I recommend that you try and find a color corrector plugin. For example, I use Magic Bullet Looks now, and I think it's one of the best color correction tools you can use. You can get it for Adobe After Effects or Vegas, and I think Premiere Pro. And so I'll just go over, I'll just use Magic Bullet Looks in this tutorial. I recommend you try and get this if possible, because it's very effective at color correcting, and you get a lot of control over how you're color correcting. So I'll just drag this to my timeline, and when you color correct, you want to color correct the entire timeline of that video track instead of just the clip, because otherwise you're just color correcting the clip and then it becomes tedious. You want to color correct the entire video, or the entire portion that you want color corrected. For example, like in my trailer, I had multiple color corrections, so I needed to split up the sections based on video tracks. So I would add more video tracks depending on how much color correction, or how many color correction types I wanted. But for this clip, I'll just use one type of color correction, and I'll just keep it consistent. So I dragged and dropped my Magic Bullet Looks color correction onto the video track, and you can change those effects by clicking on Track Effects. And it will show the plugin right here, and you just go to Edit, and it will take you to the Magic Bullets suite. And right now it's not color corrected yet. This is just vanilla AVA with slight contrasting effects and brightness. So you can go in here and you can kind of look at some different templates. But the cool part is you can choose one of these templates and kind of tweak them to your liking. So for example, I'm going to use Blockbuster because it's got some pretty nice color correction with some contrast. But I'm going to kind of tweak this a little so that it looks better. So I'll just use a couple of effects. Diffusion is basically a bloom effect on the video. It looks very good in videos, so I like using it. Just don't add too much of it, otherwise videos become kind of blurry and you don't want that. Vignette adds a surrounded black hue around your video. A lot of people use this effect. I try to keep this effect to a minimum because it's distracting sometimes, especially in brighter areas. But if I do use it, I keep it to a minimum, so I want the strength lowered for this specific video. So I have a vignette, but it's very subtle around the edges. And the color correction, well, this isn't really correction, this is more like alteration. So I want to alter this so that the video is more dramatic, but I don't want it to be overly dramatic. So I want to kind of reduce these color correction effects, and I do that by lowering them right here. Lowering the gamma amount on this, and then lowering the gain. And that just reduces the amount of color I'm adding to the clip, so that it looks better. Right now it's a little bit too blue, so I kind of want to reduce the gamma color correction on that, and I think that looks a lot better. And I kind of want to add some warmth to it, so I might move this specific color over to orange red, and I want to reduce this effect a little bit. So it's a little bit warm. The lift is a little bit blue, and then I have some highlight yellows with the gain. And you probably can't even notice the difference between this and the other clip yet, but you will when I show you what it looks like on and off. So this is the color correction I've provided with Magic Bullets on, and if I take it off, you can see the game looks much less dramatic, but if I have it on, it looks very cool and almost realistic, even though it isn't. it just looks it looks bold. It looks effective. So yeah, Magic Bullet Looks is a very effective color correcting tool that I use. It's very useful for everything. So you can even use this as like almost an image editor. So we have this, and you can see it looks great. It really brings out some of the colors without being way too oversaturated or overcolored. So this looks good, and I think this video is almost done. But I want to go over one more plugin that you guys might find useful, and it's a motion blur plugin that was suggested to me by Labash, and if I can find it. Okay, here it is, RSMB, and basically it's just, this is Real Smart Motion Blur. It's a plugin you can get for After Effects or Vegas, and basically what it does is instead of doing a resampling effect where it just puts frames in between, it detects motion and it adds blur to certain, it adds directional blur depending on where the motion is headed. So I'm going to drag this over to my video. Now mind you, if you have this effect on, you will lag like nuts because it has to calculate motion blur, which takes a lot of CPU. So if you have this on, you only want it on when you're trying to see what the clip will look like with it on. Otherwise, I usually turn it off throughout my video editing. This is probably the last thing I would put on a video before I would render it, because it takes so much calculation. And so I'm going to tweak this a little. I think these are the settings I use on motion blur for RSMB, so this is already set up. You don't want too much motion blur, but you want enough so that it looks really smooth during animation. You just don't want too much to where it's blurry. So I have it set up, and I will turn it off so that you can see. And you can see it adds motion blur to the objects that are moving, like the background and this character right here, but it doesn't add motion blur to the gun right here, so it looks pretty good. And you can see it's a very dramatic effect, and it looks really good on stills. So I have this. In fact, you know what, that might be a little too much motion blur, so I'm going to reduce this amount to 30. Whoops, too much. 30. So I have 30. That looks pretty good to me. So I have motion blur enabled now, and so now my clip is it's smoothed out really nicely instead of using that really terrible resampling effect used by Sony Vegas. So I have all of that reduced. In fact, where is this? I want to turn. Okay, it's still off. Alright, so I have all this enabled, and I'm ready to render my clip. And I will show you guys what this looks like after I'm done. So I'm going to cut this so that the video ends like right here. And this is just an example clip. And let me go over some render settings real quick. So when you go to render your video, you want to render as, honestly, WMV is perfectly fine. I use WMV all the time. You can use, there's some other ones, AVC you can use for YouTube, but usually you want to use WMV. So I use WMV, or if I'm doing After Effects after I'm done with this video, like if I want to add some effects I can only use in After Effects, I would save this as an uncompressed. But I'm not doing that, so I'm just going to render this as a WMV. I'm going to call this frag clip example, and I'm going to go to custom settings. And basically you want to use the highest quality settings you can in WMV. So I use 320 kilobits per second audio, so it sounds good. I use constant bitrate. A lot of people wonder like what these other ones are. Variable bitrate is basically, it sets the bitrate for you depending on how much bits are required to render the clip. Honestly, you want to have, I would say you want constant, because if you're going to use 20 megabits per second, or megabytes per second, is it megabytes or megabits? I think it's megabits. Yeah, it's megabits per second. So if you're using 20 megabits per second, that's probably better than VBR. So I usually stick to CBR. It uses less space, and I just think it's more effective that way. VBR does save space unless you're using quality VBR. If you're using quality VBR, you're gonna end up having a bigger file size than a CVR at 20 megabits. 20 megabits is perfectly fine for a 720p video. You're not going to notice the difference between 20 or 30 in a 720p video. Maybe a 1080p video, but a 720p video, 20 megabits is fine. So I leave it to 20 megabits, and this is all perfectly fine right here. You can set your you can set a custom resolution if you want to, if you're doing 1080p for example, but 720p is perfectly fine, and 20 megabits is fine, and I'm basically ready to render this. So I have this clip and I'm ready to render it, and when I'm done rendering it I will upload it at the end of this tutorial video, and I'll show you what it looks like. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please thumbs up, favorite it, share it with your friends who might be doing video editing. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.